In the depths of space, where stars burn cold and destinies are forged in shadow, there exists a tale so tragic, so inevitable, that the Force itself seems to weep in its telling. A boy born of legends, carrying the blood of heroes and the curse of darkness, stood at a crossroads where every path led to ruin. Picture him now, not as the monster he became, but as the child he once was. Emerald lightsaber igniting in innocent hands, laughter echoing through training halls, a heart open to all living things. Then watch as that same soul, years later, stands above his aunt's fallen body, her blood still warm on his hands, his eyes no longer recognizing the face in the mirror. This is the story of Jacen Solo, grandson of Darth Vader, who believed he could reshape the galaxy through sacrifice, who thought himself strong enough to walk between light and dark without falling, who made choices, terrible choices, each one a stepping stone deeper into an abyss from which there could be no return. But here is the question that haunts the chronicles: at what moment does a hero become a villain? Is it the first life taken in the name of peace, the first loved one betrayed for a greater good? Or does the transformation happen slowly, so gradually that even the falling cannot see their descent until the ground rushes up to meet them? Tonight we journey through 4 decades of galactic history to uncover the truth behind one of the most devastating falls from grace the Jedi Order has ever witnessed. The complete story of how Jacen Solo became Darth Caedus. From his birth during chaos to his death at his twin sister's hand, this is a story of good intentions corrupted, family bonds shattered, and the terrible cost of believing you alone can save the galaxy. Now, before we begin, I need to mention something. Around 71% of you watching right now haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoy these deep dives into Star Wars Legends lore, hitting that subscribe button truly helps this channel grow and allows me to bring you more stories like this. And please drop a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is there. I genuinely love seeing our community spread across different time zones, all gathering for these tales. So now dim the lights, settle into your blanket. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Get comfortable, because this journey spans 3 decades, multiple wars, and the complete unraveling of one of the most promising Jedi of his generation. Let's ease into tonight's story together. Our story begins not in darkness, but in hope. The year is 9, after the Battle of Yavin, a time when the New Republic struggles to rebuild from the ashes of the Empire. Coruscant, the galactic capital, gleams with renewed purpose. The Senate chambers echo with debates about freedom and democracy. Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Order takes its first tentative steps on the ancient moon of Yavin 4. Where once the Rebel Alliance hid from Imperial wrath. Into this galaxy of fragile peace, 2 souls are born. Jacen and Jacen Solo enter the world during what history would call the Thrawn Crisis, when the brilliant Imperial Grand Admiral threatened to destroy everything the rebellion had won. Their mother, Leia Organa Solo, former Princess of Alderaan and now a leading voice in the New Republic Senate, gives birth while the galaxy teeters on the brink of renewed war. Their father, Han Solo, the legendary smuggler turned general, paces outside the medical bay, suddenly understanding fear in ways no Imperial Star Destroyer ever taught him. Twins, bound by blood, and something deeper, something ancient. The Force flows through them both with a strength that makes even Luke Skywalker pause in wonder. A connection that transcends normal sibling bonds, a link that allows them to feel each other's emotions across vast distances, to share thoughts without words, to be truly 2 halves of one soul. But if Jaina burns bright and fierce like a star, Jacen's presence in the Force is different, deeper, more contemplative. Where his sister radiates confidence and action, Jacen emanates curiosity and empathy. Even as an infant, he seems to listen to things others cannot hear, watching the world with eyes too old for his infant face. 3 years later, a third child joins them. Anakin Solo, named for the grandfather none of them truly knew, the fallen Jedi, who became Darth Vader, who saved the galaxy with his final breath. A name heavy with meaning, with hope, with a prayer that redemption runs stronger than darkness in Skywalker blood. The Solo children grow up between two worlds. On Coruscant, they are royalty, children of legends, surrounded by senators and generals and the machinery of galactic government. But on Yavin 4, under their Uncle Luke's patient guidance, they are simply students. Young Jedi, learning to open themselves to the Force, to understand the great energy field that binds all living things together. And Jacen, even in these early years, shows a gift that sets him apart. A profound, almost mystical connection to living creatures. While other students struggle to sense the Force in their fellow beings, Jacen befriends the Woolamanders in the jungle canopy, communicates with the crystal snakes that nest in the temple ruins, spends hours in meditation with creatures that scatter from all others. His masters marvel at this ability. They do not yet understand it is also a warning. The years pass, as they always do, indifferent to the weight of destiny they carry. Jacen grows from curious child to thoughtful adolescent, his connection to the Force deepening with each season that turns on Yavin 4. By 11, he stands before his Uncle Luke, ready to truly begin the path of a Jedi Knight. The Praxium hums with young energy. Dozens of Force-sensitive students from across the galaxy gather here, each bringing their own cultures, their own perspectives, their own dreams of what it means to serve the light. Among them, Jacen finds companions who will shape the trajectory of his entire life. Tenel Ka Djo arrives from the Harpies Consortium, a warrior princess whose grandmother once ruled 63 star systems. She is everything Jacen is not. Where he reflects, she acts. Where he questions, she declares certainty. Her red hair catches the jungle sunlight like flame, and when she speaks, it is with the absolute conviction of Hapan royalty. Yet beneath that armor of confidence, Jacen senses something deeper, a loneliness, a desire to prove herself beyond her birthright. Their friendship begins awkwardly, as most profound connections do. Tenel Ka views his philosophical musings as weakness. Jacen finds her warrior mentality troubling, too quick to choose violence over understanding. But the Force works in mysterious ways, and soon they become inseparable, two opposing viewpoints that somehow create harmony through their differences. Lobaka joins them next, a young Wookiee with glossy black fur and a gift for mechanics that rivals his uncle Chewbacca's legendary skills. Through his translator droid MTD, Loe brings humor and loyalty to their growing circle. Then comes Raynar Thule, son of a wealthy trading family, whose earnestness and desire for approval mask deeper insecurities about his place among these children of legends. Together, they are the next generation. Luke Skywalker watches them train, seeing in their bond something that reminds him of his own early days with Han and Leia. Hope, he thinks. Perhaps this generation will avoid the mistakes of the past. Their first true test comes on the moons of Yavin, where ancient Massassi temples hide dangers the Empire never fully cleansed. Jacen and his friends venture into ruins that predate the Republic itself, seeking to understand the dark history of the Sith who once commanded these stones. Inside the Temple of the Blue Leaf Cluster, they encounter artifacts that whisper with residual dark side energy, promising power to those brave or foolish enough to claim it. Jacen feels the pull differently than the others. While Jaina's instinct is to destroy such corruption and Tenel Ka's is to confront it head-on, Jacen pauses. He wants to understand, why did the Sith fall? What need did the dark side fulfill that the light could not? These questions trouble his instructors, but Jacen cannot silence them. To defeat an enemy, must you not first comprehend what drives them? The adventure on Dathomir tests them further. The planet of the Force witches, where women wield powers passed down through generations, where the light and dark exist in complex traditions that predate Jedi philosophy. Jacen walks among the singing mountain clan, listening to their stories of the Force as a wild thing to be respected, not simply channeled. He visits the ruins where Night Sisters once practiced blood magic, feeling the echoes of their hunger for dominance. Here he asks questions that make his companions uncomfortable. If the Night Sisters used the dark side for survival, for protecting their clans from predators and invaders, were they evil or simply desperate? Can darkness serve light's purpose? Should it? Tenel Ka argues with him long into the Dathomiri nights. Right and wrong are not philosophical exercises. She insists they are choices, clear and binary. You stand for justice, or you enable tyranny. There is no middle ground. But Jacen sees too much gray in the galaxy to accept such certainty. Every absolute feels like a lie. Every declaration of pure truth sounds hollow against the complexity of living beings struggling to survive in an indifferent universe. Their training continues through various missions, the Crystal Reef, where they must work as a team to navigate treacherous asteroid fields and recover ancient Jedi artifacts. Jacen's ability to sense the living microorganisms within the asteroids, to feel the delicate ecosystem thriving in the void, saves them from disaster more than once. His connection to life itself becomes their greatest asset. Then comes the day that changes everything. During lightsaber training, an accident that will haunt Jacen for years. Tenel Ka constructs her weapon using shortcuts, her impatience to prove herself overriding proper caution. The blade is unstable, its crystal matrix flawed. When she duels Jacen in practice combat, something goes terribly wrong. Her lightsaber fails mid-swing, the blade shorts out, and in that fraction of a second, Jacen's emerald blade, already in motion, cannot stop. It severs her left arm at the elbow. The screaming stops. The training hall falls silent. Tenel Ka collapses, her blood bright against the ancient stone floor. Jacen stands frozen, his lightsaber still humming in his hand, staring at what his blade has done to someone he loves. She survives, of course. Bakata treatments and medical droids work miracles in this age, but she refuses a prosthetic, insisting that her injury is a reminder of her own hubris, her own failure to follow proper protocols. Jacen offers apologies that she dismisses with warrior's pride. It was not his fault, she declares. It was hers alone. But in the dark of his quarters, Jacen replays the moment endlessly. Should he have sensed the flaw in her blade? Could his connection to the Force have warned him a fraction of a second earlier? Is power without perfect control simply another form of violence waiting to happen? These questions plant seeds that will grow in terrible soil. The belief that if he were only stronger, more aware, more connected to the Force in all its manifestations, he could prevent suffering. He could see danger before it strikes. He could protect everyone he loves from the cruelty of chance and circumstance. At 16, Jacen constructs his own lightsaber, choosing a focusing crystal that produces an emerald blade rare among Jedi. The color speaks to his nature, the green of living things, of growth and life, and the endless complexity of the Force as it flows through all beings. When he ignites it for the first time, Luke Skywalker places a hand on his nephew's shoulder. "You have great power, Jacen," his uncle says. "But power without wisdom is just noise. Promise me you'll remember that truth is often found in questions, not answers." Jacen promises, believing absolutely that he will keep this vow. He does not yet understand that the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves, the ones we believe with our whole heart, even as they lead us step by step into darkness. The visions begin that same year. Dreams of fire and blood, of galaxies burning, of choices that branch into infinite possibilities. In his sleep, Jacen walks through futures that have not yet solidified, seeing paths where light triumphs and paths where shadow consumes all. The Force shows him something terrifying. Every choice matters. Every decision creates cascading consequences that ripple through space and time, and somehow, impossibly, he begins to believe that his choices matter more than most, that the weight of the galaxy's future rests on his young shoulders. It is the first whisper of the pride that will destroy him. But for now, it feels like responsibility. It feels like the burden a true Jedi should willingly carry. On Yavin 4, as the jungle moon turns through its eternal orbit around the gas giant, Jacen Solo studies and trains and questions everything. His instructors see a brilliant student, perhaps the most naturally gifted of his generation. His friends see someone who thinks too much, who cannot simply act without analyzing every angle. His family sees a boy becoming a man, serious beyond his years, carrying weights they do not fully understand. None of them see the precipice he approaches. None of them recognize that every step toward greater understanding is also a step away from the simple truths that keep Jedi grounded in the light. Knowledge is not always wisdom. Understanding is not always clarity. Sometimes, the more you see, the blinder you become to what truly matters. And in the darkness between stars, in places where the Force pools like stagnant water, ancient powers stir. They sense him, this boy who questions everything, who hungers to understand all perspectives. They recognize potential, the kind of potential that can be shaped, molded, turned toward purposes he cannot yet imagine. But that darkness is still distant, still years away from touching his life directly. For now, Jacen is simply a young Jedi Knight, earnest and troubled, and certain that if he learns enough, studies hard enough, opens himself fully enough to the Force, he can somehow protect everyone he loves from the suffering that seems woven into the fabric of existence itself. It is a beautiful dream. And like all beautiful dreams, it will shatter against the brutal reality of a galaxy that does not bend to even the purest intentions. The galaxy, for all its vastness, for all its countless worlds and civilizations, has never truly known peace. Wars rise and fall like tides, each generation believing their conflicts will be the last, each peace treaty signed with hope that this time, finally, the violence will end. 25 years after the Battle of Yavin, that illusion shatters completely. They come from beyond a galactic rim, from the void between galaxies where no Republic scout ship has ever traveled. The Yuuzhan Vong, and they are like nothing the galaxy has ever faced. Not droids, not another splinter faction of ambitious humans or aliens seeking power. Something genuinely alien, genuinely other, carrying with them technologies and philosophies so foreign that the very Force itself seems blind to their presence. Jacen Solo is 16. When the invasion begins, still young, still certain in the rightness of the Jedi path, still believing that understanding and compassion can bridge any divide. The Yuuzhan Vong will teach him otherwise. Their ships are not metal and circuits, but grown things, living coral vessels that bleed when struck, that scream in pain when damaged. Their weapons are biological horrors, creatures bred and shaped over millennia to kill with ruthless efficiency. Amphistaffs that shift from staff to spear to venomous serpent in the span of a heartbeat. Thud bugs that home in on targets with insect intelligence. Vandoon crab armor that turns its wearers into walking tanks, nearly impervious to blaster fire and lightsaber strikes. But the most terrifying thing about them is their absence. When Jacen reaches out with the Force, seeking to understand these invaders, seeking to find common ground or shared emotion, he finds nothing. They exist in a void, a blank space where the Force should touch but does not. It is like trying to grasp smoke, like shouting into a soundless vacuum. For someone whose entire philosophy rests on connection, on the fundamental unity of all living things through the Force, this emptiness is more than disturbing. It is existentially horrifying. The war explodes across the Outer Rim with a speed that catches the New Republic completely unprepared. World after world falls. Dubrillion, Dantooine, Ithor, that beautiful garden world, rendered lifeless by Yuuzhan Vong biological weapons that consume every plant, every animal, every microbe, leaving behind only toxic wasteland. Jacen fights in those early battles, his emerald blade flashing through the chaos, cutting down warriors who feel no fear, no doubt, only religious certainty that their gods demand galactic conquest. He saves lives, destroys enemy vessels, performs acts of heroism that would make Luke Skywalker proud. But with each victory, each enemy killed, Jacen feels something inside himself beginning to crack. These are living beings, he reminds himself, cruel, yes, merciless, certainly, but still alive, still connected to the Force, even if they cannot feel it themselves. Every death he causes is a light extinguished, a possibility ended, a future erased. How many must die before peace can return? And more troubling still, how many should die? Is there a number where the math balances, where enough sacrifice buys enough safety? These questions have no answers, but they burrow into Jacen's mind like parasites, growing stronger with every battle. Then comes Cernpedai, a mid-rim world, unremarkable in most respects, home to 3 billion souls who wake one morning to discover that their moon is falling, not metaphorically. Literally falling, pulled from orbit by a Yuuzhan Vong superweapon, dragged down by impossible gravitic forces to collide with the planet below. The evacuation is chaos incarnate. Ships scrambling to load refugees, families torn apart in the panic, children screaming for parents lost in the stampeding crowds. Han Solo leads the effort, his natural leadership cutting through the terror, organizing the desperate rescue operation. Jacen is there, using the Force to sense where survivors huddle in collapsed buildings, guiding rescue teams with precision that saves thousands. But thousands are not billions. The moon continues its inexorable descent, growing larger in the sky with each passing hour, its shadow swallowing cities whole. Chewbacca, who has stood beside Han Solo through every adventure, every danger, every impossible situation for decades, finds himself on the surface when the final evacuation order comes. A platform of refugees needs time to launch, time measured in seconds they do not have. The Wookiee holds the line alone, his bowcaster roaring defiance at the apocalypse descending from above. Han pilots the Millennium Falcon down one last time, screaming for his oldest friend to run, to reach the ship, to survive as he has always survived. Chewbacca secures the last refugee platform, ensures its launch, then turns toward the Falcon. The ground begins to buckle. Tidal forces tear the planet's crust apart. Mountains crumble. Oceans leap toward the sky. And Chewbacca, who has walked beside heroes, who has fought the Empire, and won, who has seen his homeworld freed and his people honored, stands beneath a falling moon and roars one last time. Jacen feels it through the Force, the moment when a life he has known since birth simply ends, not in battle, not fighting enemies, but in sacrifice, choosing others' survival over his own, as heroes do. The Falcon escapes as Cernpedai dies. Every soul aboard survives, except the one who made that survival possible. Han Solo collapses in the cockpit, a broken sound tearing from his throat that Jacen has never heard from his father. The man who faced down star destroyers with a smirk, who talked his way out of carbonite freezing and Hutt Palace dungeons, who has always found a way to beat impossible odds, stares at his hands like they belong to a stranger. "I left him," Han whispers. "I left him there." Jacen wants to offer comfort, wants to explain that Chewbacca chose his death, that it was noble and meaningful and exactly how the Wookiee would have wanted to go. But the words die in his throat, because he is learning something terrible about the universe. Sometimes there is no comfort. Sometimes Good beings die for no reason except that they were good, and the evil that killed them faces no immediate justice. Sometimes, the Force does not provide balance or fairness or even meaning. It simply is, indifferent to the suffering of those who trusted in it. This lesson hollows something in Jacen's heart, but worse is yet to come. His younger brother Anakin, named for their grandfather, begins to change as the war grinds on. Where Jacen questions and hesitates, Anakin acts with certainty that borders on recklessness. He sees the Yuuzhan Vong not as beings to be understood but as threats to be eliminated. His lightsaber techniques grow more aggressive, more brutal. His connection to the Force narrows, focusing on combat applications, on winning battles rather than understanding their context. Jacen watches his brother becoming a weapon, a sword the New Republic wields with increasing desperation as world after world burns. They argue late at night when exhaustion strips away pretense. "We are Jedi," Jesse insists. "Our role is to preserve life, to seek peace, not to become generals in an endless war." And what happens when peace is impossible? Anakin counters. What happens when the enemy will accept nothing less than total galactic domination or complete annihilation? Do we meditate while trillions die? There is no answer that satisfies them both. The divide between brothers grows wider with each passing month. 27 years after Yavin, the Jedi Council authorizes a desperate strike. Intelligence suggests the Yuuzhan Vong are breeding voxing, creatures specifically engineered to hunt and kill Jedi. Massive predators that can sense Force users across vast distances, that possess the ability to disrupt Jedi powers, that kill with venom and claw and single-minded purpose. The Voxine Queen, located on a world ship deep in occupied space, must be destroyed. If she continues breeding these hunters, the Jedi Order will be systematically hunted to extinction. Anakin Solo volunteers to lead the mission, just 17 years old, but already a warrior of fearsome skill, already someone the other young Jedi look to for leadership. Jaina goes as co-pilot, her twin connection to Jacen buzzing with anxiety even across the vast distance. Jacen himself joins the strike team, along with Tenel Kai, Lobaka, and a dozen other young Jedi Knights, the best and brightest of their generation. They infiltrate the world ship using captured Yuuzhan Vong ships, descending into living corridors that pulse and writhe around them. The architecture is madness, organic tunnels that shift and change, gravity that ebbs and flows without pattern. Every surface drips with moisture, with ichor, with things that might be blood or might be something worse. The Voxine Queen nests in the deepest chamber, surrounded by her brood, massive beyond imagination. Her jaws could swallow a landspeeder whole. Her claws gleam like Cortosis blades, and she is aware, intelligent in ways her offspring are not, studying the Jedi who dare invade her lair with something that might be anticipation. The battle that follows is carnage. Jedi fall, their lights winking out in the Force one by one. Anakin leads from the front, his ice-blue blade a beacon in the darkness, cutting through Voxine spawn and Yuuzhan Vong warriors with equal ferocity. Jacen fights beside his brother, trying to protect him, trying to shield him from the worst of the assault. But Anakin has moved beyond caution. He channels the Force with a power that frightens Jacen, drawing on depths of strength that feel too much like the dark side, too much like the rage that consumed their grandfather. Light and dark blur together in the heat of combat, and Anakin blazes like a supernova. He reaches the Voxine Queen. He drives his blade deep into her skull. He ensures that no more Jedi hunters will be born from her corrupted womb. And then, impossibly, more Yuuzhan Vong pour into the chamber. Too many. Far too many. Far too many. The extraction becomes impossible. Someone must hold them back long enough for the others to escape. Anakin Solo, 17 years old, looks at his brother one last time. Jacen feels through their bond what Anakin intends. feels the resignation and the fierce joy of a warrior choosing his death. But Anakin is already moving, already hurling himself into the enemy horde, his blade singing the song that has echoed through their bloodline for 3 generations. The song of Skywalkers who burn too bright, who trade their lives for others' survival, who cannot imagine a galaxy that continues without their sacrifice. The last thing Jacen feels through the Force is his brother's absolute certainty. No doubt, no fear. Just the pure conviction that this is right, that this death has meaning, that sometimes violence is the only answer, and warriors must be willing to pay the ultimate price. Then the connection snaps. Anakin Solo, the boy named for Darth Vader's redemption, dies as a warrior, exactly as he lived. Jacen collapses, the severing of that familial bond tearing something fundamental in his spirit. Around him, the surviving Jedi grab his arms, drag him toward the extraction point, screaming at him to move, to survive, to honor his brother's sacrifice by living. But Jacen does not want to live, not in a galaxy where good beings die meaninglessly, where Wookiees are crushed under falling moons, and 17-year-old heroes bleed out in alien corridors far from home, not in a universe where the Force he trusted to provide balance instead simply watches, impassive, as darkness consumes light over and over and over again. The extraction ship launches. The surviving Jedi, fewer than half who began the mission, stare at each other with hollow eyes. They killed the Voxing Queen. They achieved their objective, and the price was everything. In the hold of that ship, surrounded by the wounded and traumatized, Jacen Solo stares at his hands. These hands that held a lightsaber, that cut down enemies, that reached for his brother too late. These hands that the Force flows through, granting power, but not wisdom, strength, but not understanding. For the first time in his life, Jacen doubts the Jedi path completely. What good is the Force if it cannot prevent tragedy? What purpose does power serve if it cannot save the people you love? What is the point of being strong if strength only ensures you survive while everyone around you dies? And into those cracks, something else will eventually pour, something that promises certainty, where the Jedi offer only questions, something that claims to see the future clearly, to know exactly what must be done and why. But that darkness has not yet shown its face. For now, Jacen Solo simply mourns, broken by losses that feel too heavy to carry, wondering if the boy who wanted to understand all living things died in that world ship alongside his brother. The Yuuzhan Vong war continues, but Jacen's war, the internal battle between his ideals and the brutal reality of existence, has only just begun. The mission ends in catastrophe. The surviving Jedi scatter, fleeing the world ship before Yuuzhan Vong reinforcements can trap them completely. In the chaos, in the desperate scramble for escape pods and stolen coral skippers, Jacen finds himself separated from his sister, from Tenel Ka, from everyone he knows. His ship takes damage, critical systems failing, oxygen leaking into the void. He manages to land barely on the surface of the conquered world, the Yuuzhan Vong now call Yuuzhan Tar. Once it was Coruscant, jewel of the galaxy, city-planet of 1 trillion souls. Now it is being transformed into something alien, its duracrete and metal devoured by biological agents, replaced with organic structures that pulse and breathe like the innards of some impossibly vast creature. Yuuzhan Vong warriors find him within hours, weakened by grief, by injury, by the absolute certainty that his brother's death was his fault. Jacen barely resists. They bind him in living restraints that tighten against struggle, that sense defiance, and punish it with chemical burns. They drag him through transformed streets where buildings bleed, sap, and scream when damaged, where the sky itself seems wrong, too organic, too alive. The world ship prison is beyond description. Imagine walls that digest anything they touch, floors that shift and buckle, trying to trap feet and break ankles. Air thick with spores that invade lungs and sinuses, not quite poisonous but always uncomfortable, always reminding captives that they breathe at their captor's mercy. Other prisoners huddle in adjacent chambers, visible through membranes thin enough to see through but impossible to breach. Jacen watches them suffer, hears their screams and can do nothing. The torture begins immediately. Not for information. The Yuuzhan Vong already know everything they need about Jedi capabilities. No, this is religious. They believe pain is holy, that suffering brings one closer to their gods, that breaking a Jedi's spirit glorifies their twisted theology. They use creatures bred specifically for torment, insects that burrow under skin and lay eggs in muscle tissue, venoms that set every nerve ablaze without causing permanent damage, allowing the agony to be repeated endlessly. Sensory deprivation chambers where time loses meaning, where Jacen floats in absolute darkness, unable to tell if seconds or weeks have passed. He tries to endure with Jedi discipline, meditation techniques, releasing emotion into the Force, finding the calm center within chaos. But the torture is too systematic, too relentless. Every time he finds peace, they shatter it. Every time he touches the Force for comfort, they introduce new horrors that fragment his concentration. Weeks pass. Maybe months. Jacen loses count. His body becomes a map of scars and fresh wounds. His mind begins to fracture under the sustained assault. He starts to forget who he was before capture, starts to believe this suffering is all that exists, all that has ever existed. Then she appears. Verger is small, barely a meter tall, covered in feathers that shift through subtle colors depending on her mood. A Fosh, a species Jacen has never encountered, with large eyes that seem to see through pretense directly into the soul. She visits Jacen's cell and simply watches him for hours, saying nothing, her expression unreadable. When she finally speaks, her voice is soft, almost gentle. "You are suffering because you believe the Jedi way is the only way," she says. "You cling to their teachings, even as those teachings fail to protect you from agony. Tell me, young Solo, what has your Jedi training given you except the capacity to endure meaningless pain?" Jacen wants to argue, wants to defend his beliefs, but his voice cracks from screaming and disuse. Verger produces a flask of water, offers it freely. He drinks, suspicious but too desperate to refuse. Over the following weeks, she becomes a constant presence. Sometimes she arrives with food, small mercies that keep him alive when starvation seems preferable to continued existence. Sometimes she simply talks, her words weaving philosophical arguments that worm their way into Jacen's fractured thoughts. The Force has no sides, she insists. Light and dark are Jedi and Sith constructs, artificial divisions imposed on something that simply is. The Force does not judge. It does not care if you heal or harm, if you create or destroy. It flows through all actions equally, empowering whatever you choose to do. This contradicts everything Jacen learned at the Praxium. Luke taught that the dark side corrupts, that it offers quick power at the cost of one's humanity, that giving in to hate and anger leads inevitably to becoming something monstrous. But Verger challenges every assumption. "Did the dark side make your grandfather evil?" she asks. "Or did Anakin Skywalker make evil choices and the dark side simply gave him the strength to follow through? Is the Force a moral arbiter, or merely a tool that reflects the user's intent?" Jacen has no answers. Pain and grief have stripped away his certainties, leaving only questions that multiply like viruses. The torture continues, but now Verger teaches him techniques to not merely endure but transcend it. She shows him how to step outside his body, to view pain as information rather than agony, to use suffering as a teacher rather than enemy. These are not Jedi methods. They feel dangerous, like walking along a cliff edge in darkness, trusting each step forward without seeing the path. But they work. Slowly, impossibly, Jacen learns to exist within the torture without being destroyed by it. His captors escalate their methods. Frustrated that their victim no longer screams, no longer begs, they push him further into darkness, and Verger guides him through it. "You are learning to see clearly," she tells him. "The Jedi hide from reality, wrapping themselves in dogma and pleasant lies. They teach you to suppress your emotions rather than master them. They want you weak, dependent on their approval, never trusting your own judgment. But you can be more. You can be free." 5 months pass. Jacen no longer resembles the boy who was captured. His body is scarred, hardened by constant abuse. His eyes hold depths that should not exist in someone so young. When he reaches out to the Force now, it responds differently, less like a gentle current and more like a raging river that will drown or carry him, depending on his strength to navigate its flow. Verger's final lesson is the most disturbing. She brings him to a chamber where other prisoners hang in restraints, fellow New Republic soldiers, civilians, even other Jedi captured during the war. The Yuuzhan Vong commander gives Jacen a choice. Torture them, and you will receive food, medical treatment, a brief respite from your own suffering. Refuse, and the torture continues for all of you, worse than before. Jacen stares at Verger, searching her alien features for guidance, for permission to refuse this horror. She offers neither. She simply watches, waiting to see what he will choose. Every fiber of his Jedi training screams at him to refuse, to accept suffering rather than inflict it on innocence. But another voice, quieter and more insidious, whispers different wisdom. If he refuses, everyone suffers. If he complies, at least his pain ends. At least he survives to potentially escape and save others later. Is it not more moral to accept temporary evil if it leads to future good? He does not know when he makes the decision. One moment he is frozen in ethical paralysis, the next his hands are moving, channeling the Force in ways Luke never taught him, inflicting pain on beings who did nothing to deserve it. Their screams echo in the chamber. Jacen's soul screams with them, but he does not stop. When it ends, Verger nods slowly, something like satisfaction in her large eyes. "Now you understand," she says. "The Force does not punish you for this. It does not recoil in horror. It simply empowers your choice, as it empowers all choices. You have taken your first step beyond the Jedi's childish morality into true understanding." Jacen wants to believe she is corrupting him, wants to cling to the certainty that what he just did was absolutely wrong, regardless of circumstance. But that certainty has been tortured out of him, replaced by the terrible knowledge that right and wrong are not as clear as his teachers claimed. That sometimes survival requires compromise, that the universe does not reward moral purity, only strength and will and the courage to do what must be done. The Yuuzhan Vong reshape him over the following weeks into Onimi's servant. Onimi, the Supreme Overlord's familiar, a scarred and twisted being who speaks in riddles and madness. Jacen is paraded before Yuuzhan Vong commanders demonstrating Jedi abilities on command, a pet Force user proving that even the mighty can be broken and remade. But beneath the compliance, beneath the hollow obedience, Jacen is changing in ways his captors cannot see. Verger is not simply breaking him. She is teaching him a philosophy that will define the rest of his life. The idea that the Force is unified, that power itself is neither good nor evil, that intention and outcome matter more than adherence to rigid codes. It feels like enlightenment. It feels like he has finally moved beyond the limitations that held him back, beyond the Jedi's fear of their own strength. He is becoming something new, something that transcends the simple binary of light and dark. He does not yet understand that this is exactly how the dark side works. Not through obvious corruption, not through sudden falls into cackling villainy, but through small compromises, through reasonable arguments, through the slow erosion of lines that once seemed absolute. until nothing remains but the certainty that you are right, and everyone else is simply too weak to do what is necessary. Rescue comes unexpectedly. Han and Leia, who never stopped searching for their son, penetrate the world ship's defenses with a desperate assault. Jaina reaches through their twin bond, calling Jacen back from whatever dark place he has retreated into. The extraction is violent, chaotic, everything happening too fast for Jacen to fully process. Vergeberger vanishes in the confusion. Whether she escaped, died, or simply chose to remain behind, Jacen never learns, but her teachings remain, carved into his psyche more deeply than any Yuuzhan Vong torture device managed. When Luke Skywalker embraces his nephew, relieved beyond words that Jacen survived, he senses immediately that something is different. The boy who left for the marker mission is not the man who returns. There is a hardness now, a certainty that feels wrong coming from someone who always questioned everything. "Jacen, what happened to you?" Luke asks quietly, away from the others, away from the celebrations of his rescue. "I learned the truth," Jacen responds, and his voice carries conviction that chills his uncle. "The Force is not what you taught me. It is neither light nor dark. It simply is, and I intend to understand it completely, in all its manifestations." Luke wants to argue, wants to explain why this philosophy is dangerous, why the Sith have used similar reasoning to justify atrocities for millennia. But looking into his nephew's eyes, seeing the trauma lurking behind that newfound certainty, he hesitates. Perhaps Jacen needs time to heal, to find his way back to himself. Perhaps pushing too hard now will only drive him further away. It is a mistake born of compassion. Luke Skywalker, who redeemed Darth Vader through love and faith, believes he can guide his nephew back to the light through patience and understanding. He does not realize that Jacen has not fallen to the dark side yet. He has found something potentially more dangerous. A middle path that denies the very existence of light and dark, that removes all moral guardrails in the name of pragmatic wisdom. 29 years after the Battle of Yavin, the Yuuzhan Vong War finally ends. Not through total victory, but through an unprecedented peace brokered between former enemies. The living world Zonama Sekot, a planet that is itself a massive Force-sensitive organism, provides sanctuary for the Yuuzhan Vong, offering them a place to rebuild their shattered civilization away from the galaxy they nearly destroyed. Jacen is instrumental in these negotiations. His ability to understand multiple perspectives, to see beyond simple good and evil, allows him to communicate with Yuuzhan Vong in ways other Jedi cannot. He recognizes their desperation, their religious fervor born from millennia of fleeing something that destroyed their home galaxy. He sees them not as monsters but as refugees, victims of their own history, seeking meaning in a universe that took everything from them. Some in the New Republic call this sympathy for the enemy. Others call it wisdom. Jacen calls it understanding reality as it truly exists rather than how we wish it would be. On Zonama Sekot, surrounded by the living world's vast consciousness, Jacen meditates for weeks. The planet is attuned to the Force in ways that make even the strongest Jedi feel like children learning to walk. It exists in perfect balance, neither light nor dark, simply alive and aware and ancient beyond comprehension. Here Jacen believes he finds confirmation of Vergere's teachings. The Force flows through Zonama Sekot without judgment, empowering the planet's ability to create and destroy, to nurture and defend, to exist beyond the artificial categories that Jedi and Sith impose on reality. If an entire world can embody this unified philosophy, surely it validates everything he learned during his captivity. He sits beneath boris trees that sing in harmonics only Force sensitives can hear, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that do not exist elsewhere in the galaxy. Other Jedi come to meditate beside him, seeking peace after years of war. They find Jacen changed, harder to read, his presence in the Force like deep water, where once it was an open book, Jaina approaches him one evening, her twin bond humming with concern she cannot fully articulate. "You are different," she says simply. "I can feel it. Something happened to you in that prison, something you have not shared with anyone." Jacen looks at his sister, his twin, the other half of his soul. He wants to explain, wants to make her understand that he has not fallen but risen, has not been corrupted but enlightened. But the words feel inadequate, the concepts too complex for quick explanation. "I learned that the galaxy is more complicated than we were taught," he finally says, "that power is not inherently evil, that the Force does not choose sides in mortal conflicts. I learned to see clearly, Jenna, and I cannot unsee what I now know to be true." She reaches for his hand, squeezing it gently. "Just promise me you will not lose yourself in this new philosophy. Promise me the brother I grew up with still exists somewhere inside the man you have become." Jacen promises because he believes it is true. He does not feel lost. He feels found. He does not feel corrupted. He feels liberated from the chains of dogma that held him back from true understanding. It is the most dangerous place a Force user can occupy, not drowning in the dark side's obvious corruption, but standing in gray waters, certain of their own clarity, unable to see that the current is slowly, inexorably pulling them toward depths from which there is no return. The galaxy celebrates peace, but Jacen Solo cannot celebrate. He has seen too much, lost too much, learned too much. Anakin is dead. Chewbacca is dead. Trillions perished in the war, and the Force, for all its power, prevented none of it. The light side offered no protection. The Jedi way saved no one who was not strong enough to save themselves. So Jacen makes a decision that will alter the course of galactic history. He will leave the New Republic, leave the Jedi Order, leave everything familiar behind. He will spend years traveling the galaxy, seeking out every Force tradition, studying every philosophy, learning from masters both light and dark, without restricting himself to Jedi-approved wisdom. He will become more than a Jedi. He will become something that transcends their limitations, their fears, their failure to prevent the catastrophes he has witnessed. Luke Skywalker, sensing his nephew's intent, offers one final warning. "Knowledge is not always wisdom, JC. Sometimes the more you learn, the less clearly you see. The Jedi way has endured for millennia because it protects us from our own worst impulses. Abandon it carefully, if you abandon it at all." But Jacen is beyond warnings now. He has looked into the abyss of Yuuzhan Vong torture chambers and emerged believing himself stronger for it. He has learned from Verger that the Force serves whoever is strong enough to master it, regardless of their methods or intentions. He leaves Zonama Sekhet with the peace accord secured, with the war finally ended, with the galaxy beginning to heal. He travels alone, seeking truths the Jedi hide from, embracing knowledge they fear to touch. And in the darkness between stars, in places where ancient powers sleep, his presence is noted. The Sith have learned patience over generations. They do not need to corrupt Jacen Solo. They merely need to guide him along the path he has already chosen. The path that Verger prepared so carefully. The path that leads step by inevitable step toward the darkness that awaits with infinite patience. But that final fall is still years away. For now Jacen Solo simply seeks understanding, believing absolutely that knowledge will set him free, never imagining that some truths are chains disguised as wisdom, that some enlightenment is blindness wearing the mask of sight. The Force flows through him, neither approving nor condemning, simply empowering whatever he chooses to become. And his choices, born from trauma and guided by flawed philosophy, will eventually drown the galaxy in blood. Jacen Solo departs into the unknown regions with nothing but a small starship, basic supplies, and an hunger for knowledge that borders on obsession. 26 years old, scarred by war and torture, carrying the weight of his brother's death like a stone lodged in his chest. He tells no one where he is going. He leaves no itinerary, no schedule for return. This is not a mission. This is a pilgrimage. The galaxy is vast beyond human comprehension, home to thousands of species and millions of worlds, each with their own relationship to the Force, their own understanding of the great mystery that binds all living things. The Jedi represent just one interpretation, one tradition among countless others. Jacen intends to learn them all. His first stop takes him to the Te monks, a species of enigmatic beings who dwell in the Cathal Rift, a region of space where reality itself seems malleable. The Te are not humanoid. They resemble massive scaled creatures somewhere between dragon and serpent, with intelligence that dwarfs most species and a connection to what they call the many colors of the Force. They do not see light and dark. They see a spectrum, infinite shades and variations, each representing different aspects of the Force's expression through conscious beings. Anger is one color. Compassion is another. Neither is inherently superior. Both are simply frequencies in the greater harmony. The Te teach Jacen flow walking, a technique that allows Force users to step outside linear time, to view the past as it actually occurred or peer into potential futures that may or may not come to pass. It is dangerous knowledge. The Jedi forbid it, recognizing that those who walk through time often lose their grounding in the present, become unstuck from causality, begin to believe they can control destiny itself. Jacen learns it anyway. He walks through his own past, witnessing his brother's death from angles he could not see during the actual event, searching for the moment where he could have changed the outcome. He watches Anakin fall 1,000 times, each viewing confirming what he already knows. There was no other path. His brother chose death, and no power Jacen possessed could have altered that choice. But the future is different. The future branches endlessly, probability trees spreading in all directions, each decision point creating new timelines that diverge and multiply. Jacen walks these potential paths, seeing galaxies at peace and galaxies consumed by endless war. He sees himself as a hermit withdrawn from galactic affairs, meditating in obscurity. He sees himself as a leader, guiding billions through wisdom and strength. And he sees darker paths, futures where he wears authority like armor, where his choices shape entire civilizations, where he holds power so absolute that questioning him becomes unthinkable. These visions disturb him, but they also whisper seductive promises. With enough foresight, with perfect knowledge of consequence, could he not prevent tragedies before they occur? Could he not save the people he loves by seeing danger before it strikes? The Te warn him that viewing the future changes it, that the very act of observation collapses probability into fixed outcomes. They tell him that flow walking is meant for understanding, not control, for learning from what was rather than manipulating what might be. Jacen listens to their warnings and believes he is wise enough to heed them. He is wrong. But he will not discover this until much later, when those visions have already led him too far down paths from which there is no return. From the Cathal Rift, Jacen travels to Dorin, the home world of the Keldori species, seeking the Barandu sages. These ancient Force users predate the Jedi Order by thousands of years, their traditions focused on weather manipulation and foresight. They do not build temples or academies. They work in isolation, perfecting their abilities through decades of meditation and study. The Barandu teach Jacen to sense atmospheric changes before they occur, to feel the building pressure of storms hours before the first cloud appears, to understand weather as a living system connected to the Force in ways most beings never consider. But more valuable than weather sense is their approach to prophecy. The sages have learned through millennia of experience that foresight is treacherous. Visions of disaster often become self-fulfilling, as those who see catastrophe coming make choices that inadvertently cause what they sought to prevent. The wise prophet, they teach, does not try to stop what they see, they prepare for it. They accept that some futures are inevitable regardless of intervention. Jacen finds this philosophy troubling. If you can see disaster approaching and do nothing, are you not complicit in the suffering that follows? The sages respond that trying to prevent the unpreventable causes more harm than accepting what must be. Wisdom is knowing which futures can be changed and which must be endured. He leaves Doran with new skills, but unresolved questions, the tension between action and acceptance gnawing at him. The Fallenasi welcome him next. A mysterious group of Force adepts who manipulate the white current, their name for the energy field that Jedi call the Force. They are masters of illusion, able to make themselves invisible, to create false images so convincing that even other Force users cannot pierce the deception. They do not fight. They do not conquer. They simply hide, maintaining their traditions in secret while the galaxy tears itself apart in endless conflicts. Their philosophy is one of non-attachment taken to extremes. The Fallenasi believe that the more you care about outcomes, the less clearly you see truth. Desire clouds judgment. Fear distorts perception. Only by releasing all want, all need, all preference, can one truly understand the Force as it is rather than as we wish it to be. Jacen tries to embrace this teaching, but finds himself fundamentally unable to achieve their level of detachment. He cares too much, loves too deeply, carries too many scars from watching people he cherished die in pain. The Fallenasi tell him this is his weakness, the flaw that will prevent true enlightenment. Jacen begins to wonder if perhaps caring is not a weakness, but a strength they are too afraid to acknowledge. On Susefi, he encounters the Gensari, Force users, who blend Jedi and Sith teachings into something uniquely balanced. They emerged from Sith traditions, but rejected the destructive hunger for power, instead focusing on using both light and dark techniques for defense and survival. Their armor, crafted from cortosis-laced materials and shaped through the Force, represents their philosophy made manifest: protection over aggression, strength through balance. The Gensari tell Gensi what he has been waiting to hear, that the Jedi are wrong to fear the dark side, wrong to suppress emotions, wrong to pretend that anger and passion are inherently evil. These feelings are natural, human, necessary for survival. The mistake is not in feeling them, but in allowing them to control you. Master your emotions rather than denying them, they teach. Use every tool the Force provides rather than crippling yourself with artificial restrictions. This resonates deeply with Jacen's experiences. During his torture, suppressing his fear and anger as Jedi doctrine demanded only made the suffering worse. Learning to acknowledge and channel those emotions gave him the strength to survive. Perhaps the Jedi way is not wisdom but cowardice, a fear of their own power disguised as enlightenment. Dathomir calls to him next, that wild world of the Force witches where he adventured as a teenager. But this time he studies not with the Singing Mountain clan who lean toward light, but with the reformed Night Sisters, those who have abandoned the most extreme dark practices but still embrace power and passion as tools rather than sins. The Night Sisters teach him that the Force responds to will. The stronger your determination, the more clearly you visualize the outcome, the more likely reality bends to match your intent. They show him techniques of Force manipulation that go beyond anything the Jedi taught, ways to influence minds, to strengthen bodies beyond natural limits, to impose order on chaos through sheer force of personality. And they teach him the most dangerous lesson of all, that sacrifice is sometimes necessary, that if you want power great enough to protect what you love, you must be willing to pay prices that weaker beings find unacceptable, that the galaxy belongs to those strong enough to take it and hold it, and morality is a luxury only the powerful can afford to practice selectively. Jacen resists this philosophy, recognizing its similarity to Sith teachings. But seeds have been planted, doubts have been nurtured, and the wall between acceptable and unacceptable methods grows thinner with each new tradition he studies. Years pass in this wandering. Jacen visits the Therin listeners who can sense emotions across star systems, feeling the joy and suffering of billions simultaneously, learning to process that overwhelming input without going mad. He studies with minor Force traditions on dozens of worlds, each offering fragments of understanding that the Jedi either never knew or deliberately suppressed. And eventually, inevitably, he comes to the ancient Sith worlds, Korriban, where dark lords of millennia past entombed themselves in massive pyramids, their spirits lingering in the stone, whispering to anyone foolish enough to listen. Zeost frozen and abandoned, its temples holding holocrons that promise knowledge beyond imagination. Jacen tells himself he is merely studying, that understanding Sith philosophy will make him better equipped to recognize and resist it. He enters the tombs alone, lightsaber ready, certain that his Jedi training will protect him from corruption. The spirits of ancient Sith do not attack him. They do not try to possess his body or turn him into a raving monster. They simply talk, they ask questions, they point out contradictions in Jedi philosophy with surgical precision. If the Force truly has a will, one spirit asks, why does it allow such suffering? If the light side is truly stronger, why do the Sith keep returning, generation after generation, offering alternatives the Jedi cannot fully suppress? Perhaps the Force is not choosing sides at all. Perhaps it is simply testing which philosophy produces beings strong enough to survive. Jacen records these conversations, analyzing them later in the safety of his ship, trying to separate truth from manipulation. But the distinction becomes increasingly blurred. The Sith raise points he cannot easily dismiss. They articulate doubts he has harbored since childhood but never spoke aloud. What if the Jedi are wrong? Not maliciously, not through corruption, but simply through millennia of institutional momentum that has calcified wisdom into dogma. What if the galaxy needs something different, something that acknowledges reality's complexity rather than forcing it into simplistic categories? 5 years after his departure, Jacen Solo returns to known space transformed yet again. He has studied with masters both orthodox and heretical. He has learned techniques from a dozen Force traditions, combining them into a personal philosophy that transcends any single school of thought. He can flow walk through time, sense weather patterns, create illusions, influence minds, use anger as fuel without being consumed by it. He is, by any measure, one of the most knowledgeable Force users alive. He has achieved what he set out to achieve, gathering wisdom from across the galaxy, breaking free from Jedi limitations. But knowledge is not wisdom. Power is not understanding. And the more Jacen has learned, the less clearly he sees the one truth that matters most, that certainty is the enemy of wisdom. That believing you have transcended limitations is the surest sign you have already fallen into traps you cannot perceive. The Force flows through him stronger than ever, responding to his will with frightening efficiency. He has become formidable, dangerous, capable of feats that would make Luke Skywalker pause in concern. And in the dark spaces between stars, in the ruins of Sith temples and the hidden places where ancient evils sleep, a presence has been watching his journey with patient interest. Lumiya, once the Emperor's hand, now a Sith lady carrying the legacy of Vader's teachings, sees in Jacen Solo everything she has been searching for: power without corruption, strength without obvious darkness, a mind sophisticated enough to embrace Sith philosophy while believing himself above Sith failings. She does not approach him yet. The time is not right, but she begins laying groundwork, setting events in motion that will eventually bring them together. Because Jacen Solo, with all his knowledge and power and certainty that he has found a better way, is exactly the kind of student the Sith have learned to cultivate. Not through obvious temptation, not through promises of power, but through patience, through philosophy, through questions that have no easy answers and choices that seem necessary at the time. Jacen returns to his family, to the new Jedi Order, to a galaxy that has changed in his absence. He brings with him powers they do not fully understand, uncertainties that trouble those who know him best. Luke Skywalker embraces his nephew, grateful for his safe return, and immediately senses how far Jacen has drifted from Jedi teachings. But he says nothing, hoping that time and community will guide his nephew back toward the light. It is another mistake born of love, and it will cost the galaxy everything. The unknown regions have never been fully mapped. Those vast territories beyond the galactic rim where space itself seems to obey different rules. Ancient species dwell there. Empires that rose and fell before humans ever left their homeworld. Mysteries that the Republic and Empire both chose to leave undisturbed. It is into these uncharted territories that Jacen Solo is drawn almost immediately upon his return. Reports reach the new Jedi Order of strange activity among the Killik species, insectoid beings who live in massive hive colonies, their individual identities subsumed into collective consciousness. Normally peaceful, rarely involved in galactic affairs, the Killiks have suddenly become aggressive, expanding their territory, attacking neighboring systems without provocation. Worse still, several Jedi who went to investigate have not returned. Not dead, but changed, absorbed into something the Killiks call the colony, their minds no longer entirely their own. Luke Skywalker organizes a mission to discover what has caused this transformation, and Jacen volunteers immediately, partly out of duty, partly out of curiosity about a species that exists in ways so fundamentally different from humanoid consciousness, but mostly because sitting still, returning to normal Jedi routine after 5 years of independence, feels like imprisonment. The mission team includes Jaina, still carrying concerns about her twin's transformation. Also Tenel Kai, who has ascended to Queen Mother of the Hapes Consortium following her grandmother's death. She rules 63 star systems now, carries responsibilities that would crush most beings, but she insisted on joining this mission personally. Something about the Killik crisis touches Hapan interests, though the connection is not immediately clear. When Jacen sees her again after 5 years, something shifts in his chest. She has changed, matured from warrior princess into sovereign, carrying authority with natural grace that makes even hardened generals defer to her judgment. But beneath the crown and formal bearing, he senses the same fierce spirit he fell in love with as a teenager. They do not speak of their feelings immediately. There is too much work, too much danger, too much responsibility weighing on them both. But the Force connection between them hums with recognition, with longing, with the knowledge that some bonds transcend time and distance. The Killik nest worlds are beautiful in an alien way that makes human aesthetics seem limited. Massive organic structures tower toward the sky, grown rather than built, pulsing with the collective life of millions of individual Killiks who think as one entity. The air vibrates with their communication, subsonic thrumming that Jacen can feel in his bones before he hears it with his ears. They find Raynar Thul, their old friend from the Jedi Academy, alive but transformed. He calls himself Yunu Thul now, speaks with the voice of the Killiks, claims to be the bridge between their species and the rest of the galaxy. His body has been partially consumed by Killik flesh, his mind merged with the hive consciousness in ways that blur the distinction between individual and collective. And they discover something darker, a splinter group called the Dark Nest, Killiks who have been touched by something corrupt, something that whispers of old Sith presence in this region, ancient evil that found new vessels in insectoid minds that process reality so differently from humanoid consciousness. Jaina has been affected too, unconsciously joining with the darkness through dreams, her connection to the Killiks stronger than she realizes. She does not remember what happens when she sleeps, but the Dark Nest uses her Force abilities, her knowledge, channeling her power toward their expansion goals. Jacen recognizes the danger immediately. If the Dark Nest continues growing, absorbing more Force users into its collective, it could become something unstoppable. A hive mind with Jedi abilities. Individual brilliance multiplied by millions of coordinated bodies acting as one. He uses flow walking to track the Dark Nest's origins, stepping back through time to see what awakened this corruption. The visions show him ancient Sith artifacts hidden on Killik worlds, dark side presences that lay dormant for millennia until the species stumbled upon them. Corruption that spread through the hive like disease, transforming peaceful creatures into something hungry for dominance. The solution is not simple violence. You cannot kill part of a hive mind without damaging the whole. Jacen instead works to sever the Dark Nest's connection to the greater colony, to isolate the corruption and starve it of new hosts. It requires precision beyond anything he has attempted before, using skills learned from a dozen Force traditions, walking the knife edge between healing and harm. During this crisis, thrown together in constant danger, Jacen and Tenel Ka find moments of peace within chaos. Late-night conversations after battles, stolen hours between diplomatic negotiations with killer queens and tactical planning sessions. They speak of the years apart, of how responsibility has shaped them both, of dreams deferred and futures uncertain. Their romance rekindles not with dramatic gestures, but with quiet inevitability. Two people who have always understood each other, finally admitting what they have both known since adolescence. They fit together like pieces of a puzzle, her certainty balancing his questioning, his empathy softening her warrior's edge. They keep the relationship secret. Tenel Ka's position as Queen Mother makes public attachments politically complicated, especially with a Jedi, especially with someone from the Solo family whose fame makes privacy nearly impossible. And Jacen has learned during his travels the value of keeping important things hidden from those who would use knowledge as leverage. Months passed dealing with the Dark Nest crisis. Battles are fought. Diplomatic solutions negotiated, compromises reached that satisfy no one completely but prevent outright catastrophe. Yuuzhan remains with the Killiks, too deeply merged to be separated without destroying his consciousness entirely. Jaina is freed from the Dark Nest's influence, though she carries guilt about actions taken while under their control. And during these months, Tenel Ka discovers she is pregnant. The news should bring joy. In another life, in another galaxy, it would mean celebration and hope for the future. But in this reality, it means complication and danger. A child born to the Queen Mother of Hapes becomes automatically heir to one of the wealthiest and most powerful governments in the galaxy. A child of Jacen Solo carries the bloodline of Anakin Skywalker, inheriting Force potential that could be immense or devastating depending on choices not yet made. The Happen royal family has a dark history of assassination, of heirs killing each other for succession rights, of plots and counterplots that have murdered more royals than any external enemy. Tenel Ka knows this history intimately. Her own mother nearly died in such schemes multiple times. They make a decision that will define everything that follows. The child will be kept secret. Born away from Hapes, raised in hiding, protected from political machinations by the simple fact that her existence remains unknown to those who would use her as a pawn or eliminate her as a threat. Jacen agrees to this plan, though it tears at him. He wants to be a father openly, wants to raise his daughter with the love and presence his own father provided. But he also understands pragmatic necessity. Sometimes, protection requires painful choices. Sometimes, love means accepting separation for the sake of safety. Alana is born in secret on a remote world, attended only by medical droids and Tenel Ka's most trusted guards, individuals who would die before revealing their queen's secret. Jacen is there for the birth, holding his daughter for the first time, feeling through the Force her bright presence, untainted and pure and perfect. She is everything. In that moment, holding new life that came from love, Jacen understands purpose beyond philosophy, beyond power, beyond all the knowledge he accumulated during his 5-year odyssey. His daughter represents the future, hope made flesh, a reason to ensure the galaxy remains safe and prosperous for her generation. It is a beautiful sentiment. It is also the seed from which terrible things will grow, because when someone has everything to lose, they become capable of anything to protect it. When the threat of loss looms, when you can walk through time and see potential futures where your child suffers, the temptation to do whatever is necessary to prevent those futures becomes overwhelming. But for now, Jacen simply holds his daughter and makes silent promises that he will protect her, that he will ensure she grows up in a galaxy without war, that no matter what sacrifices are required, he will keep her safe from the cruelty and chaos that took his brother, that killed Chewbacca, that has defined his entire life. Tenel Ka watches him with her daughter, seeing both the love and the intensity in his eyes, and feels a flicker of concern she cannot quite articulate. Jacen has always been thoughtful, always questioned and analyzed. But there is a certainty in him now when it comes to Allana, an absoluteness that reminds her uncomfortably of the warrior mentality she has tried to temper in herself. They return to their separate lives. Tenel Kati to Hapes, ruling her consortium with wisdom that earns respect even from those who opposed her ascension. Allana remains with trusted caregivers, visited secretly by her mother as often as duty allows, by her father less frequently, but with no less devotion. Jacen returns to the new Jedi Order, taking assignments, teaching younger students, trying to fit back into the community he left behind. But he no longer quite belongs. His knowledge makes other Jedi uncomfortable. His willingness to consider unorthodox approaches to problems troubles the Council, and his ability to walk, to see potential futures branching endlessly, isolates him in ways he cannot fully explain. He sees visions of Allana constantly now, futures where she grows up safe and loved, futures where she is discovered and killed by Hapan rivals, futures where galactic wars touch her life, where the chaos Jacen fought to end returns and consumes the next generation. The visions multiply until he can barely distinguish which paths are likely and which are merely possible. Luke Skywalker senses his nephew's growing obsession, the way Jacen fixates on threats that have not materialized, planning contingencies for disasters that may never occur. He tries to counsel Jacen, to remind him that the future is always in motion, that trying to control what has not yet happened is the path to madness. But Jacen has already tasted powerlessness too many times. He could not save Anakin. He could not prevent the Yuuzhan Vong War's casualties. He will not, cannot, fail to protect his daughter from whatever dangers the galaxy holds. This determination feels like strength. It feels like the natural response of a parent who loves their child. It does not yet feel like the beginning of the fall, the first step down a path that leads to places where love curdles into possession, where protection becomes control, where the desire to prevent suffering justifies causing it. Allana grows in secret, knowing only that her mother loves her and visits when she can. She does not know her father's name, does not understand the legacy she carries, does not suspect that her very existence has become the fulcrum around which galactic history will pivot. And in the shadows, Lumiere continues watching. She has learned patience across decades. She has seen how the greatest Sith are not those who fall quickly to obvious darkness, but those who slide gradually into evil while believing they serve good. Jacen Solo, with his vast knowledge and questionable philosophy and desperate need to protect what he loves, is exactly what she has been cultivating. The pieces move into position slowly. The galaxy enjoys its fragile peace, unaware that storms are building, that the Son of Heroes is being shaped by invisible hands toward a destiny that will shatter families and ignite wars. But the storm has not yet broken. For now there is simply a young Jedi trying to balance duty and fatherhood, love and responsibility, the wisdom he has gained, and the doubts that will not leave him. The Force flows through Jacen Solo, stronger than ever, responsive to his will, in ways that would make lesser beings giddy with power. He has everything he ever wanted to achieve: knowledge, skill, love, a child who represents hope for the future. He does not yet understand that having everything makes you vulnerable in ways poverty never could. That those with nothing to lose are free in ways the wealthy and powerful can never achieve. That the more you love, the more easily you can be manipulated by those who understand how to weaponize that love against you. The Dark Nest crisis ends. The galaxy continues turning. Life goes on as it always does, indifferent to the tragedies brewing just beneath the surface of normalcy. And Jacen Solo, father and philosopher, warrior and scholar, walks forward into futures he believes he can control, never suspecting that every step is guided, every choice has been anticipated, every path leads ultimately to the same destination. A place where the boy who wanted to understand everything becomes the man who destroys everything in the name of protecting what he loves most. 40 years after the Battle of Yavin, the galaxy fractures again. Corellia, proud core world and birthplace of Han Solo, threatens secession from the Galactic Alliance, not over tyranny or oppression, but fear that centralized government always becomes what the Republic became. Democracy turning into bureaucracy, turning into the Empire reborn. Chief of State Cal Olmos tries negotiation. Jacen Solo, now 31 and a colonel in the Galactic Alliance Guard, advocates immediate military intervention. Allow one world to leave successfully, and the alliance crumbles. The lesson of the Yuuzhan Vong invasion was clear. Weakness invites catastrophe. Luke Skywalker argues for patience. Jacen finds his uncle's optimism dangerous. 4 other worlds join Corellia: Salonia, Dral, Talis, and most terrifying, Centerpoint Station. The ancient superweapon sits in their territory now, capable of destroying entire fleets in a single firing, a deterrent that makes invasion nearly suicidal. Jacen uses flow walking obsessively, exploring how this crisis resolves across countless futures. Most paths lead to galactic collapse within a decade. War spreading. Civilization fragmenting. Only in timelines with strong, decisive leadership does stability emerge. He watches Alana growing up in war-torn futures, her life touched by violence he failed to prevent. The visions become prophecy. The prophecy becomes justification. She appears during this crisis like an answer to questions he has been asking for years. Lumiere, former Emperor's Hand, student of Darth Vader, last keeper of Sith traditions. She moves through his quarter's security as if it does not exist, standing before him with scarred face and eyes that carry decades of patience. She does not attack. She validates. The Jedi are failing through cowardice, she tells him. They fear their own power, preach moderation when the galaxy demands strength. Your uncle redeemed Vader through love, and that single success blinded him to reality. Sometimes love is not enough. Sometimes strength is necessary. Jacen knows he should report this encounter. Instead, he listens. Lumiere offers what she calls the One Sith philosophy. Not the rule of 2 with its endless betrayals. Not the ancient Sith empire of chaos and infighting. The One Sith serves the greater good, rules to protect rather than dominate, uses power for stability rather than personal glory. It is seduction packaged as pragmatism. Jacen, believing himself too sophisticated to fall for obvious darkness, does not recognize the trap. She teaches him techniques Jedi forbid. Mind manipulation through subtle suggestion rather than crude domination. Channeling anger as fuel without being consumed. drawing on light and dark equally, treating the Force as tool rather than moral judge. And she teaches him about sacrifices. Ancient Sith tradition requires specific acts that prove commitment, not corruption. Lumiya insists. Dedication, willingness to do what must be done regardless of cost. The first sacrifice comes quickly. Betray someone who trusts you. Nalani Din, fellow Jedi Knight, investigates his connection to Lumiya. If she reports her suspicions, it undermines everything when the galaxy needs leadership most. Jacen meets her privately, pretends to explain. When her guard drops, his blade ignites through her chest. She dies confused. He tells himself it was necessary. One death to prevent billions. The thoughts feel like clarity. They are corruption wearing reason's mask. War erupts. Skirmishes become battles. Terrorist attacks hit Coruscant. Jacen receives command of the Galactic Alliance Guard and transforms it into something frighteningly efficient. Enhanced interrogations approved. Surveillance expanded. Arrests made based on predictive algorithms. His flow walking makes devastatingly accurate. Civil liberties erode. Some senators applaud, others voice concern. Jacen dismisses their worries. You cannot debate freedom if civilization collapses. Luke confronts his nephew, demanding to know what happened to the thoughtful boy who questioned everything. Jacen responds that he stopped questioning and started acting. Philosophy without results is noise. Their relationship shatters. The second sacrifice arrives. Inflict pain on someone you love. Ben Skywalker, Luke's 14-year-old son, serves as Jacen's apprentice. During an interrogation, when Ben hesitates to extract information forcibly, Jacen demonstrates with Force lightning, then uses it on Ben himself to teach about hard necessities. The boy screams, betrayal written across his face. Jacen watches and calls it education, love requiring hard lessons. Ben begins pulling away, questioning everything. Jacen is too focused on preventing galactic collapse to notice the damage. The Battle of Trilus forces irreversible choices. Corellian forces use civilians as shields. Jacen's analysis shows that allowing them to maintain position prolongs war by months, costing millions. He orders orbital bombardment, knowing thousands of civilians will die. Cities burn. The galaxy reacts with horror. Luke publicly condemns the action. Jacen does not care about opinion. He cares about results. Tryphlis falls. The war timeline shortens. He was right. Being right matters more than being loved. The third sacrifice comes with terrible clarity. Kill someone you love. Mara Jade Skywalker investigates him, preparing evidence of his fall to present before the Council. She is dangerous because she is correct. Her assessment would undermine Alliance leadership when it needs strength most. Jacen arranges to meet her privately. The fight that follows would kill most Jedi. But he has flow walked through this encounter dozens of times, knows every move before she makes it. He kills her efficiently, stages the scene to implicate Lumiya, provides himself cover. Luke discovers his wife's body and something breaks in him that will never heal. Jaina knows through their twin bond that Jacen is responsible even without proof. The family fractures completely. Han and Leia can no longer maintain denial. Their son has become something they do not recognize. Jacen stands at the center of this destruction, feeling only certainty. He has completed the traditional sacrifices, betrayed a friend, harmed a loved one, killed family. Each act made the next easier. He does not see corruption. He sees commitment. Lumiya appears with the final sacrifice. Give up your former identity. Take a Sith name. Embrace what you have become without reservation. Jacen Solo dies, not physically, but spiritually. The boy who loved animals and questioned everything ceases to exist. Darth Caedus rises, spirit of slaughter in ancient Sith dialect, accurate, honest in ways Jacen Solo could never be. He seizes control through political coup. Cal Omus removed on fabricated charges. Admiral Chal Neathal becomes co-chief of state. Military government replacing civilian weakness. Martial law declared. Jedi order separated from Alliance authority. Opposition disappears into detention centers. Darth Caedus stands at power's pinnacle, looking over a galaxy he sees to save, believing absolutely in his righteousness. That history will vindicate his choices, that Alana will grow up in peace purchased with blood. He does not understand he has become exactly what he feared. That in preventing his grandfather's mistakes, he repeated them perfectly. That the dark side whispers in reason's voice, in necessity's tone, in love twisted into possession. The galaxy sees a tyrant. He sees a savior. Both perspectives are true. That is the final tragedy of his fall. Power consolidates quickly once you stop pretending democracy matters more than survival. Darth Caedus moves through the Galactic Alliance government like a surgeon excising weakness. Senators who question his methods find themselves facing corruption investigations. Military officers who hesitate to follow orders are reassigned to irrelevant posts. The Jedi Council, still clinging to their outdated principles, discovers that without government support their influence evaporates like morning fog. He does not announce himself as Sith Lord publicly. That would be strategically foolish, handing his enemies a propaganda victory. To the galaxy at large, he remains Colonel Jacen Solo, war hero and pragmatic leader, making difficult choices during crisis. Only those who matter know the truth. Only those with power understand what he has become. Admiral Neathal proves useful at first. She shares his belief that military efficiency surpasses democratic deliberation during wartime. Together they implement policies that transform the Galactic Alliance into something recognizable from history books. Emergency powers, indefinite detention, media controls, all justified by the ongoing Confederation threat, all temporary measures that somehow never expire. But Neathal retains conscience enough to object when methods grow too extreme. She questions the interrogation techniques, hesitates when Caedus orders preemptive strikes against worlds, merely considering joining the Confederation, suggests that perhaps they should negotiate rather than dominate. Weakness dressed as wisdom. Caedus sees through it immediately. Their partnership fractures during the planning for Operation Roundabout, an assault on Confederation positions that requires accepting significant civilian casualties for tactical advantage. Neathal refuses to authorize it. Caedus authorizes it anyway, bypassing her authority through military channels she did not realize he controlled. The Admiral realizes too late that she was never co-chief of state in any meaningful sense. She was cover, a respected military figure lending credibility, while Caedus consolidated actual power. When she attempts to countermand his orders, officers look through her as if she has already ceased to exist. Neathal defects to the Confederation, taking a significant portion of the fleet with her. It should be a devastating blow. Instead, Caedus feels only relief. No more pretending shared authority. No more negotiating with someone who lacks the stomach for necessary actions. He stands alone at the apex now, exactly where he needs to be. The war expands in ways that make the Yuuzhan Vong invasion seem almost comprehensible by comparison. At least those enemies were external, alien, something the galaxy could unite against. This conflict tears families apart, forces children to choose sides against parents, turns the very concept of galactic civilization into contested territory. Kashyyyk burns. The Wookiee homeworld, having sided with the Confederation, faces Caedus's wrath. Orbital bombardment strips entire forests that stood for millennia. Wookiees who fought alongside his father against the Empire now die by his command. Han Solo watches his son destroy the homeworld of his oldest friend, and something inside the legendary smuggler simply breaks. Leia tries to reach Jacen one final time, using their mother-son bond, pleading with whatever remains of the boy she raised. She finds only walls, shields so complete that not even maternal love can penetrate them. Her son has gone somewhere she cannot follow. The Solo family, once symbol of galactic heroism, becomes tragedy made flesh. Tenel Ka keeps Allana hidden on Hapes, her consortium officially neutral, but everyone knowing where her sympathies lie. Caedus demands access to his daughter, insists that she represents the future he is fighting to secure. Tenel Ka refuses, recognizing that the man she loved has been consumed by something monstrous. Their final conversation happens via hologram, formality and distance replacing the intimacy they once shared. "You have become everything you claim to oppose," she tells him, voice carrying the authority of 63 star systems. "I will not allow our daughter near you. She will know her father only through stories of who you were before you fell." Caedus wants to rage, to threaten, to use his power to take what she denies him. But some fragment of Jacen Solo remains buried deep, some piece that recognizes she protects Allana from a threat he himself represents. He accepts her judgment with silent fury, promising himself that when the galaxy is secure, when his vision is realized, Tenel Ka will understand. They will all understand. Ben Skywalker escapes his service, fleeing the gag with evidence of atrocities committed under Caedus's command. The boy Luke trusted to Jacen's mentorship becomes a witness for the prosecution, testifying to Jedi investigators about torture and murder and orders given with casual brutality. Luke uses this evidence to formally declare Jacen Solo fallen to the dark side. The pronouncement carries weight across the galaxy. The greatest living Jedi Master, Redeemer of Darth Vader himself, has declared his own nephew irredeemable. Caedus reads the declaration and feels nothing but contempt. Luke redeemed Vader after the Sith Lord killed millions, after decades of serving Palpatine's evil. But his nephew, who sacrifices for galactic stability, who acts from love rather than hatred, Luke condemns. The hypocrisy would be funny if it were not so dangerous. Tahiri Vela becomes his most devoted follower, the only Jedi who fully embraces his philosophy. She loved Anakin Solo, Jacen's younger brother, and that love died with him on the Mirkan mission. Caedus promises something impossible. Learn Sith techniques of manipulation and resurrection, master the Force beyond Jedi limitations, and perhaps Anakin can be brought back. It is a lie. Caedus knows resurrection is myth, a fantasy that not even Sith Lords achieved. But Tahiri needs purpose more than truth, and her skills make her valuable. She becomes his enforcer, carrying out missions other GAG operatives refuse, crossing lines that make even hardened soldiers uncomfortable. She tortures prisoners who might have information, assassinates Confederation leaders during peace negotiations, plants evidence that turns allies against each other, all while believing she serves love's memory, that every atrocity brings her closer to resurrecting the boy she lost. Caedus uses her devotion without guilt. Everyone is a tool. Love, hate, loyalty, betrayal, all are simply levers to achieve necessary outcomes. The Jedi coalition forms in response to his rise. Luke leads it personally, gathering those who recognize that stopping Caedus has become more important than maintaining political neutrality. Jedi who fought the Yuuzhan Vong together now prepare to fight a Solo. The Force itself seems to weep at the perversion. Battle of Quart demonstrates Caedus's tactical genius and moral bankruptcy in equal measure. Confederation and Jedi forces attempt to liberate the shipyards, those vital facilities that produce the warships maintaining his power. Caedus defends not through conventional tactics but through precognition so complete that his enemies find themselves defeated before they fully commit to attacks. He flows through time, watching battles unfold from multiple angles, adjusting strategy based on knowledge of what enemies will do before they do it. It is cheating, elevated to art form. It is also unstoppable. Casualties mount into hundreds of thousands. Ships burn in the void. Families receive notifications that loved ones died fighting for or against a government they barely understand anymore. The war has moved beyond politics into something primal: survival, dominance. The question of who gets to define what the galaxy becomes. Caedus fortifies Coruscant for siege, preparing for the day when enemies surround the capital itself. He converts civilian facilities into military installations, conscripts populations that have no interest in fighting, implements rationing that brings core world citizens their first taste of genuine hardship in generations. Protests erupt. He crushes them, not violently enough to create martyrs, but thoroughly enough to ensure compliance. The techniques Palpatine used during his rise, methods Caedus once studied academically, become tools wielded with casual efficiency. And through it all, his flow walking shows futures where his actions lead to peace. Timelines where 30 years from now, historians write about the brutal but necessary period when strong leadership saved civilization from collapse. He sees Alana grown, ruling Hapes with wisdom learned from her father's hard choices, sees galactic stability that lasts for generations. The visions sustain him through moments when doubt threatens to surface, when he lies awake remembering Nilani's confused dying expression, when he recalls Ben's screams, when he thinks about Mara Jade bleeding out while he staged evidence of Lumiya's guilt. In those moments, the future he sees through flow walking becomes scripture, proof that suffering has meaning, that sacrifice serves purpose, that he is not monster but savior making choices others lack strength to make. He does not recognize that flow walking has become addiction, that he seeks vision supporting choices already made rather than allowing futures to guide decisions. The INT warned him. The Barandu sages cautioned against this exact trap. But Caedus has moved beyond wisdom into certainty, and certainty requires no teachers. Lumiya vanishes after his ascension. Her purpose fulfilled, whether she lives or dies becomes irrelevant. She planted seeds that grew exactly as intended. Darth Caedus needs no master now. He has transcended student status, become fully realized in his power and purpose. The Sith tradition speaks of the rule of one differently than Lumiya explained. Not one Sith serving the galaxy, but one Sith containing all power, all authority, all decision-making capacity. Caedus embodies this completely. He is law. He is justice. He is the future made manifest through will alone. And if that makes him tyrant rather than savior, if his certainty is madness rather than clarity, if love twisted into possession is still just possession wearing love's mask, Caedus has moved too far down this path to recognize truth. The Force flows through him with terrible strength, responding to commands that would horrify Luke Skywalker, empowering actions that Jacen Solo would have found unthinkable. But Jacen is dead. Only Caedus remains. Standing at power's apex, ruling through fear and military might, convinced absolutely of his righteousness, he prepares for the confrontations he knows must come. Family will try to stop him. Friends will turn to enemies. The galaxy will resist before accepting what he offers. He is ready. He has seen these futures. He knows how they resolve. Victory is not certain. But victory is possible if he remains strong enough to do whatever becomes necessary. For Alana, for peace, for a future where his sacrifices are vindicated by outcomes that justify any cost. The arithmetic of atrocity has become his gospel, and Darth Caedus, standing alone in darkness wearing light's stolen crown, believes absolutely in its truth. 41 years after Yavin, the galaxy has fractured into three powers locked in mutual destruction. The Galactic Alliance under Darth Caedus controls the core worlds and major trade routes, wielding military superiority but losing legitimacy daily. The Confederation spans much of the Outer Rim, united only by opposition to Caedus's authoritarianism, fracturing internally over what comes after if they win. And threading through both sides, the Jedi coalition, trying desperately to end the war without completely destroying either government. It is chaos, pretending to be strategy. Millions die in battles that accomplish nothing but generating new reasons to keep fighting. Caedus thrives in this environment. Wars of ideology and clear objectives would constrain him. But conflict is messy, this confused, allows someone with his tactical gifts and willingness to embrace brutality to dominate through sheer force of will. The siege of Ruro Station demonstrates his methods perfectly. Confederation forces establish supply depot on the station, using its civilian population as deterrent against Alliance assault. Standard military doctrine suggests blockade, starve them out over months, minimize casualties. Caedus has no months to spare. He assaults directly, accepting casualties among his own troops that would make other commanders hesitate. Then, when Confederation forces retreat into civilian sections, he pursues. The battle spreads through habitation rings where families hide in sealed compartments, hearing combat thunder outside walls too thin to stop stray fire. Thousands of civilians die. Caedus captures the station in 3 days, rather than 3 months. His strategic timeline advances. The math by his calculation favors this outcome. His troops begin to fear him more than they respect him. They follow orders with mechanical precision, knowing hesitation or moral objection leads to reassignment or worse. The GAC has internal security now, watching for disloyalty, ensuring compliance through surveillance that makes privacy obsolete. Soldiers who fought the Yuuzhan Vong alongside Jacen Solo barely recognize what he has become. Some defect when opportunities arise. Most simply endure, hoping to survive until someone stops him or the war ends. Han and Leia have become active. Confederation supporters, using their legendary status to rally systems against their own son. The irony would amuse Caedus if it did not complicate tactical situations. Bombing runs must account for whether Han Solo flies defensive positions. Negotiations fail because Leia's presence guarantees Confederation delegates will never concede to terms he finds acceptable. His parents have become enemy combatants. The realization should hurt. Instead, it feels like confirmation. Everyone who lacks strength to accept hard truths eventually reveals themselves as obstacles. The Battle of Fondor forces the most brutal choice yet. Major industrial world, shipyards, second only to Quad, split between Alliance loyalists and Confederation sympathizers. Neither side can afford to lose it. Neither side can afford to destroy it. The entire battle becomes exercise in fighting over a prize that shatters if you grip too hard. Caedus arrives with overwhelming force, intending to secure the world before Confederation reinforcements arrive. But Neathal, now leading opposing fleets, predicted his strategy. She has fortified positions that make assault costly enough to be pointless. They face each other across the void. Former partners now on opposite sides of a war, neither can win through conventional means. Caedus knows if he retreats, morale collapses. His entire reign rests on projecting invincibility. Neathal knows if she engages fully, the shipyards burn and nobody wins. The standoff lasts hours. Then Caedus makes his choice. He orders bombardment of orbital platforms supporting Neathal's position, platforms attached to civilian infrastructure, targets where military necessity and civilian casualties merge into one terrible equation. Neathal withdraws rather than watch civilians die as collateral damage. Caedus secures Fondor at the cost of thousands who were never soldiers, never combatants, simply people living in the wrong place when military priorities demanded their deaths. Reports reach him later about a girl, maybe 12, pulled from wreckage where his bombardment collapsed an entire residential section. She lost both parents, 3 siblings, her entire family consumed by strategy. Rescue workers tried to comfort her. She only asked why. Why her family? Why her home? Why? Caedus reads the report and feels nothing. One girl's tragedy against billions saved. The arithmetic has not changed. Will never change. Sentiment is luxury he cannot afford. But sometimes, late in sleep cycles when exhaustion finally wins, he dreams, not flow-walking visions of branching futures, but simple nightmares. The girl asking why, Nilani dying confused, Ben screaming under Force lightning, Mara Jade's blood on his hands. He wakes and banishes the dreams with meditation techniques that would horrify Jedi Masters, using pain as focus, channeling doubt into fuel for certainty, transforming any emotion that might slow him into cold determination. The Force responds to these techniques with terrible efficiency. He grows stronger daily, his connection deepening in ways that feel like ascension. He can sense lives across star systems, manipulate minds through suggestions, so subtle targets never realize their thoughts were influenced. Fight multiple opponents simultaneously through combat precognition that makes him nearly untouchable. Power without limit, strength without moral constraint. Everything the Sith promised, delivered completely. Tenel Kai sends one final communication through channels so secure they take weeks to establish. No hologram this time. Just text, cold and formal, stripped of any affection. She informs him that Alana asks about her father. The girl is 7 now, bright and curious, sensing through the Force that some important truth is being kept from her. Tenel Kai has decided to tell her a version of the truth, that her father was a Jedi who fell to darkness, that he fights a war he believes is righteous but is actually evil, that she must never seek him out because he would use her as a pawn in games she cannot understand. The message ends with 5 words that cut deeper than any lightsaber wound. Jacen Solo would understand this choice. Caedus reads it 3 times, searching for tactical advantage, for emotional leverage, for anything useful, finds only truth. Jacen would understand, would agree completely, would probably make the same choice in Tenel Kai's position. Good thing Jacen is dead then. Caedus feels only rage at being denied access to his daughter, at being judged by someone who lacks vision to understand necessary sacrifices. He considers options: military pressure on Hapis, diplomatic maneuvering, outright invasion to claim Alana by force. None of them work. Hapes Consortium has remained neutral, and breaking that neutrality would drive them fully into Confederation alliance. The tactical costs outweigh benefits. Cold calculation defeats parental instinct. He sends no reply, adds Alana to the list of futures he fights for, casualties he will eventually justify when victory is complete and everyone who doubted him sees the peace his brutality purchased. Jaina trains with Boba Fett during this period, seeking skills to kill her twin. The most feared bounty hunter alive teaches her what he knows about killing Force users, techniques developed across decades of hunting Jedi. She learns to shield her presence, to strike from angles precognition struggles to predict, to use technology and environment rather than relying solely on Force abilities. Caedus knows about this training through his intelligence network, knows his sister prepares to murder him, knows the twin bond they shared since birth has transformed into weapon pointed at his heart. He could kill her first. Remove the threat preemptively. His tactical advisors suggest exactly that. But some boundary remains uncrossed, some line even Darth Caedus will not step over willingly. Jannah represents the last connection to who he was. Killing her means severing final ties to Jacen Solo completely. And despite everything, despite the murders and atrocities and absolute certainty of his righteousness, some fragment wants to believe redemption remains possible, that if he succeeds, if he achieves the peace he envisions, his family will eventually understand and forgive. It is delusion. But delusion sometimes keeps monsters human enough to retain strategic advantage over pure machines. The Imperial Remnant, that fragment of Palpatine's government that never fully surrendered, chooses sides finally. They ally with the Confederation and Jedi coalition, recognizing Caedus as greater threat than old enemies. Former Imperials and rebel heroes fighting together against the grandson of Darth Vader. History has a sense of humor after all. Three-sided war becomes multi-front nightmare. Battles at Balmorra, skirmishes through the corporate sector, raids on supply lines that keep the core worlds fed while Outer Rim starves. Assassination attempts that come weekly now, forcing Caedus to maintain constant vigilance even in supposedly secure Alliance facilities. He commands from his flagship Jacen Solo, the cruel poetry of that choice lost on nobody. Named for the brother whose death started his fall, the ship from which he directs atrocities that brother would have found unthinkable. His bridge crew operates in terrified silence. His tactical officers provide assessments with mechanical precision. His troops follow orders without question or complaint. He has created an environment where efficiency replaces humanity, where fear achieves what loyalty once did. The Galactic Alliance Defense Fleet, once symbol of freedom and protection, has become instrument of oppression, wielded by someone who believes oppression is just strength wearing its true face. Caedus stands on the bridge, watching holographic displays of battles across dozens of worlds, calculating trajectories and analyzing outcomes, and feels satisfied. His enemies coordinate against him. His former allies scheme for his removal. His family plots his death. None of it matters. He has walked through these scenarios. He knows the paths to victory, knows the price victory requires, knows he has become willing to pay any price, sacrifice anyone, destroy anything that stands between the galaxy and the future he has seen. But Caedus does not see patterns, does not recognize that every Sith believes their fall is different, their cause more righteous, their certainty more justified. He sees only necessity, only the burden of being strong enough to do what others cannot. The war grinds forward. The galaxy bleeds, and Darth Caedus, standing alone at power's apex, believes absolutely that he is winning. The end begins at Sheddomad, a secret Jedi base hidden in the transitory mists, where Luke Skywalker has gathered forces for a final assault. Caedus knows about it. His intelligence network has grown sophisticated enough to track even Jedi who believe themselves hidden. He allows them to gather, to plan, to believe they have surprise. Better to face them all at once than hunt scattered remnants across the galaxy for years. Strategic patience. Let enemies concentrate their strength in one place, then crush them completely. The Jedi coalition strikes hard. Multiple task forces hitting Alliance positions simultaneously, trying to divide his attention. But Caedus has walked through these scenarios. He knows which targets matter and which are feints, knows where to concentrate forces and where to accept losses. Alana, his daughter, somehow aboard the Jacen Solo, despite every security protocol, every precaution, every measure designed to prevent exactly this scenario. Tenel Kada authorized it, provided access codes and guard rotations and everything necessary for Jedi operatives to reach the most secured areas of his flagship. His former love, mother of his child, betrayed him completely. The realization hits like physical blow. He trusted that maternal instinct would keep Alana away from the war. Instead, Tenel Kai has used their daughter as bait, knowing Caedus would keep her close if he ever gained custody, knowing that proximity makes her rescuable. Caedus abandons all other considerations, his tactical position, the fleet actions, the broader strategic picture. None of it matters if Allana escapes. She represents everything, the future he fights for, the justification for every atrocity. Proof that his sacrifices serve purpose beyond power for its own sake. He pursues the rescue team personally, leaving his bridge crew to manage the battle, focused entirely on recovering his daughter before they reach their extraction point. The corridors of his own flagship become a hunting ground. Jedi Knights die trying to slow him down, their lightsabers no match for his precognitive advantage and absolute determination. He cuts through them with efficiency that would make Vader proud, leaving bodies in his wake, getting closer to Allana with every passing second. He catches them in a hangar bay, extraction ship warming engines, Allana being carried aboard by Jedi whose faces he recognizes, friends once comrades during the Yuuzhan Vong War, now kidnappers stealing his daughter. "Stop, or I bring that ship down with everyone aboard," he roars through the Force, backing the threat with power that makes bulkheads groan. They hesitate. In that moment of hesitation, he moves, lightsaber igniting, closing the distance in a Force-enhanced sprint that covers 50 meters in a heartbeat. Jaina steps between him and the ship. His twin sister, the other half of his soul, standing ready in a combat stance. He recognizes from Boba Fett's teachings, her blade the same violet hue it has always been, her presence in the Force the mirror to his own. The bond between them, dormant since his fall, suddenly erupts with connection so intense it staggers them both. For a moment, they are children again, training on Yavin 4, sharing thoughts without words. Two pieces of one whole. Then the moment passes. They are enemies. She has come to kill him. He cannot allow that to happen. "Move aside, Jaina," he says, trying to keep his voice level. "This does not concern you. Allana is my daughter. I have every right to stop her abduction." "She is a child," Jaina responds, and her voice carries grief that cuts deeper than hatred ever could. "And you have become a monster, using her as justification for atrocities. I will not let you have her. I will not let you have anything else." The extraction ship launches with Allana aboard, engines screaming, racing toward safety. Caedus could pursue with the Force, could bring the ship down, could ensure his daughter stays within his power. But Jaina stands in his way, and some things even Darth Caedus cannot walk past without resolution. They fight in that hangar bay, twin against twin, two masters of the Force raised in identical training now applying their skills toward mutual destruction. Jaina has learned well from Fett. She does not rely on her Force abilities exclusively, mixing physical attacks with unpredictable angles, using the environment, fighting smart rather than strong. But Caedus has walked through this duel 1,000 times in flow-walking visions. He knows every move before she makes it, counters techniques before they fully develop, dominates through precognition that makes victory seem inevitable. She manages to wound him anyway. A solid strike to his thigh, blade cutting deep, severing muscle and tendon. His right leg fails, Achilles tendon burned away, mobility compromised completely. Any normal duelist would fall, would become vulnerable, would lose. Caedus channels pain into fuel, draws on the dark side with desperation that transcends technique, continues fighting on one leg with ferocity that drives Jaina backward despite her advantage. The duel spills from the hangar into corridors, both of them bleeding, both exhausted beyond anything training prepares you for, both knowing this ends with death. The twin bond amplifies everything, making them feel each other's pain, each other's determination, each other's absolute certainty that they fight for righteous cause. Reinforcements arrive from both sides. Hapan vessels loyal to Tenel Kais breach the flagship's defenses, drawing Alliance forces away from protecting their leader. Caedus's own troops close in, but Jedi warriors intercept them, buying Jaina time to finish what she started. The duel reaches the bridge, his command center, the place from which he has directed galactic war and authoritarian control, fitting that it becomes his end. Caedus sees futures collapsing. Flow walking shows him timelines branching from this moment. In most of them, he dies. In a few, he wins but loses so much blood that victory becomes meaningless. In one, just one, he kills Jaina and escapes, survives to continue his reign. He reaches for that future, trying to force reality onto that path through sheer will. But flow walking is not control. Observation collapses possibilities, but does not determine outcomes. The Ating Tai tried to teach him this. He never truly listened. Jaina strikes again, her blade piercing his shoulder, destroying his dominant arm's functionality. He strikes back, his blade grazing her ribs, cracking bone but missing vital organs. They separate, both dying slowly, both aware that next exchange will be final. The bridge around them burns, damaged by their duel, systems failing, alarms screaming warnings nobody addresses. Caedus has one choice left. He can draw on depths of dark side power that will kill him but take Jaina with him. Murder-suicide, ensuring his sister dies even if he cannot survive. Or he can accept defeat, face death, hope that his daughter at least escapes to live in whatever galaxy emerges from his failure. For the first time in years, Jacen Solo's voice whispers through Darth Caedus's certainty, asking what he has become, questioning whether any of this served the future he claimed to protect. He stops defending. Not completely, not obviously enough for Jaina to recognize the choice, but he slows fractionally, allows openings he could close, stops using precognition with full effectiveness. Jaina's blade finds his heart, pierces completely, exits through his back, carrying vital tissue and the last of his life. Caedus collapses. His twin catches him, easing his fall, holding him as he dies the way she held him as an infant when they were both new to the galaxy. Through the twin bond, finally open again, finally free of all shields and lies, she feels his last thoughts, not justification or certainty or continued belief in his righteousness, just regret. Simple, profound, too late to matter, regret. He sees Alana in his fading vision, not through flow walking, not viewing futures anymore, just memory. His daughter laughing, pure, innocent, untouched by the war he waged, claiming to protect her. He wanted to save her from suffering. Instead, he orphaned her by choice, made himself into monster she will learn to fear when she is old enough to understand history. The poetry is almost unbearable. Vader fell to save Padme and killed her instead. Caedus fell to protect Alana and became the nightmare she needs protection from. His last words, whispered so quietly Jaina barely hears them, are simply an apology. Not to her, not to his family. To the boy he was before torture and war and Vergere's philosophy convinced him that strength mattered more than compassion. Sorry, he whispers to Jacen Solo, sorry for killing you first. Then Darth Caedus dies in his sister's arms, age 32. Having ruled the Galactic Alliance for less than 2 years, having caused more suffering than any single being since Palpatine himself. The flagship bridge falls silent. Alarms stop, fighting stops. Even the Force seems to pause, acknowledging that something momentous has occurred. Jaina holds her twin's body and weeps, not for Caedus, for Jacen, for the brother who died years ago in Yuuzhan Vong prison, tortured and manipulated until nothing remained but certainty wearing love's stolen face. The galaxy does not mourn Darth Caedus, but a small circle mourns Jacen Solo, the boy who wanted to understand all living things, who believed knowledge would set him free, who never realized that some truths are prisons and some freedoms are chains disguised as wisdom. Outside the flagship, the battle ends. Alliance forces, learning their leader has fallen, begin surrendering. Hapan vessels secure the area. Jedi move through corridors, offering mercy to troops who expected execution, and somewhere, racing towards safety, Yuuzhan Solo sits in a rescue ship surrounded by protectors, unaware that her father just died, believing his death would somehow justify everything he became. The Force flows through all of it, neither approving nor condemning, simply marking the end of another Skywalker tragedy, another generation learning that power without wisdom is not strength but surrender wearing dominance's mask. Jacen Solo became Darth Caedus, trying to prevent his grandfather's mistakes. He repeated them perfectly instead. History will record this. But history cannot comfort the broken family he leaves behind, cannot restore the millions who died under his rule, cannot undo the certainty that transformed a promising Jedi into galactic nightmare. The boy who questioned everything died, believing in absolute answers. That is tragedy. That is the final lesson. That is the cost of thinking yourself wise enough to stop questioning and strong enough to impose your vision on reality itself. Jaina carries her brother's body toward the medical bay, knowing that even in death, even exposed as tyrant and murderer, some part of her will always love the boy they both were before the galaxy demanded they become something else. The war is over. The Sith are defeated. The Jedi have won. But victory feels remarkably like defeat when you measure its cost in family destroyed. The question that haunts the survivors is deceptively simple. What transforms a hero into a villain? Certainty. That is the answer historians eventually reach. The absolute belief that one person can see clearly enough, understand completely enough, know definitively enough to make choices for billions. The moment you stop questioning yourself, you begin the fall. The Galactic Alliance reforms with mechanisms to prevent another Caedus. No single individual holds both military and political authority. Emergency powers require constant renewal. The Jedi Order separates from government completely, returning to peacekeepers rather than political participants. These reforms come too late for millions who died, but perhaps they prevent the next would-be savior from believing authoritarian control serves the greater good. Luke Skywalker carries the weight of failure personally. He trained Jacen, sensed his doubts, believed patience would guide him back. The Council institutes new protocols, closer monitoring of students who show too much interest in forbidden knowledge. Training emphasizes community over individual enlightenment. Some Jedi argue this betrays their principles. Others insist certain knowledge is genuinely dangerous. The debate continues. Perhaps it should. The moment you stop questioning your own safeguards, you create new problems. Han Solo and Leia withdraw from public life, their legendary status forever marked by their son's crimes. They visit Jacen's unmarked grave together, a simple stone where no monument to Darth Caedus exists. "We should have seen it," Han says quietly. Leia takes his hand. "We saw it. We just didn't know how to stop it." Love is not always enough. Two legends facing the knowledge that saving the galaxy means nothing if you lose your children in the process. Tenel Ka raises Alana in secret, renamed Amelia, hidden from the spotlight. The girl grows bright and kind, too young to understand her father's legacy. When she is old enough, Tenel Ka will tell her the complete truth. Not propaganda where Caedus was simply evil, but the complex reality of a man who loved deeply and fell completely. That choice belongs to Alana alone. Ben Skywalker grows into a cautious Jedi Knight, forever marked by his time as Caedus's apprentice. He teaches younger students about the seductive nature of certainty, about how easy it is to justify atrocity when you believe your cause is righteous. Jaina becomes the sword of the Jedi, dedicating herself to being protector rather than ruler. She killed her twin to save the galaxy. That act defines the rest of her life. Sometimes she still feels Jaina through their bond, not alive, but echoes. She mourns the boy he was. She will mourn him until she dies. Tahiri Vela serves prison time for war crimes, no longer believing resurrection is possible, no longer trusting the philosophy that led her to darkness. The galaxy heals slowly, absorbing tragedy and moving forward. Worlds rebuild, governments reform. Life continues with stubborn determination to survive. Caedus's tactical innovations are studied while his methods are condemned. His surveillance systems dismantled, his concentration of power serves as cautionary tale. The unifying force philosophy is examined critically, debated endlessly, reaching no definitive conclusion. Perhaps some questions resist simple answers. Years pass. The war becomes history. New conflicts emerge because conflict is woven into galactic civilization. But none reach the existential horror of watching a hero become tyrant, watching a family destroy itself. Luke teaches in his final years that the dark side is not external corruption. It is potential within all beings, waiting for justification. Jacen fell because he stopped trusting the Force and started trusting himself exclusively, because he confused power with wisdom and certainty with clarity. The lesson is simple to understand and nearly impossible to practice. Question yourself, always, especially when you believe you are right. In the transitory mists, a monument stands, not to Darth Caedus, but to all who died stopping him. Among the names, Nelani Din comes first, the Jedi he betrayed when she questioned him. Her death marks when stopping him might still have been possible. The meditation gardens at night are peaceful. Students learn to release desire for control, to accept the Force has will beyond their understanding, to trust something greater than their own judgment. The lesson Jacen Solo never learned. The stars wheel overhead, indifferent to dramas below, witnessing endless cycles of rise and fall. The Force flows through all, neither approving nor condemning, simply the energy binding the galaxy together. Jacen Solo believed he understood the Force completely. That certainty killed him. Because the Force is mystery, not solution. Question, not answer. Path, not destination. He wanted to save everyone he loved. He lost them all instead. He wanted to prevent his grandfather's mistakes. He repeated them perfectly. The tragedy is not that he fell. The tragedy is that he fell, believing he was rising, that he destroyed everything in the name of protecting it. That love twisted into possession is still just possession wearing love's stolen face. Somewhere in the galaxy, on a remote world where the Force flows strong and pure, young Jedi students sit in meditation. Their masters teach them about Jacen Solo, not to condemn him, but to understand him, to recognize that he was brilliant and compassionate and deeply flawed, that his fall began with reasonable questions and ended in unreasonable certainty. They learn his story as warning, as reminder, as proof that no one is immune, that power without humility is surrender, that the moment you stop questioning is the moment you become dangerous. The Force flows through these students, through their teachers, through the gardens and stars and infinite space between worlds. It remembers everything, forgives slowly, waits patiently for the next generation to learn or repeat the lessons written in blood across galactic history. Night deepens. The students drift towards sleep, their breathing synchronized with the rhythm of the Force itself. In that twilight between waking and dreaming, they touch something vast and patient and utterly beyond individual understanding. They feel Jacen Solo's presence not as ghost or spirit, but as echo in the Force. A warning carved into reality itself. A reminder that the hardest battles are fought within, that the most dangerous enemies wear familiar faces, that certainty is the cliff edge where wisdom goes to die. The meditation gardens grow quiet. Stars continue their eternal dance. The Force flows on, carrying memories of all who fell and all who rose, all who saved and all who destroyed, all who questioned and all who believed they had found final answers. And in that flowing, in that eternal movement between light and shadow, hope and despair, wisdom and folly, the galaxy finds its balance, not through the actions of heroes or the defeat of villains, but through the continuous choice to remain humble, to keep questioning, to remember that power is responsibility and certainty is blindness. Jacen Solo forgot this truth. Darth Caedus never knew it. But perhaps in his death, in the ruin his certainty created, in the lives destroyed by his conviction, future generations will remember. That is the only redemption his story offers. Not forgiveness, not understanding, simply the stark reminder that we are all capable of becoming monsters if we stop questioning whether our righteousness is real or simply pride wearing wisdom's mask. The gardens sleep, the stars shine, the Force remembers. And somewhere, in meditation halls across the galaxy, students learn to ask the question Jacen Solo stopped asking too soon. Am I certain because I am right? Or am I certain because I am afraid to be wrong? The answer to that question honestly faced is the difference between Jedi and Sith, between wisdom and folly, between Jacen Solo and Darth Caedus. May the Force be with those who have the courage to keep asking. Always,